Sup, freaks? This episode was brought to you by our good friends at CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is here to help you reimagine how you pay your healthcare costs, how you take care of your healthcare. CrowdHealth is not health insurance. It's actually trying to get more and more people to walk away from the health insurance industry because it's an opaque black box where you throw money in, you don't really know what's going on with it, you don't know how your healthcare costs are being negotiated on your behalf by the health insurance companies. You really don't know if you're being taken care of or not. CrowdHealth is here to fix that. What you do when you join CrowdHealth is you join a community of people who are taking care of themselves and who really want to become sovereign with their healthcare. What you do is you become a member and you pay a monthly fee. That fee goes to a dedicated health account, a bank account that you control, that you have visibility into, that you can always take with you at the end of the day if you decide to move away from CrowdHealth. You pay that monthly subscription fee, and then if you ever have a health event, you bring your healthcare bill to the CrowdHealth team. They go to the doctor, negotiate your health expense down to a lower price because they actually work on your behalf as opposed to the insurance companies. And then you pay the first $500 of your healthcare cost, and then it goes out to the CrowdHealth community, and your bill is crowdsourced. To date, they've had 100% of their healthcare bills paid, and it's a beautiful thing. They're also adding a Bitcoin component where a portion of your monthly subscription fee will get put into Bitcoin, so you have your fiat dollars alongside your Bitcoin account. Again, you have access to both at the end of the day if you ever want to walk away from it. But again, it helps you lower your healthcare costs because they're there to negotiate on your behalf. It's a much more personal experience instead of calling a 1-800 number. When you become a CrowdHealth member, you have a dedicated health advocate who is the same person throughout your time with CrowdHealth, who's going to walk you through everything you need to do and make sure that you're getting the best care that you can get that you can possibly get. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/TFTC. The first 1,000 members of the Bitcoin community are going to get, using the code TFTC, are going to get $99 a month for the first 6 months of their healthcare, of their CrowdHealth cost. So go check this out. Me and my family, we use CrowdHealth. We've decided to opt out of the traditional health insurance industry. Again, it's very opaque. Feel like it doesn't really take care of us. So come join us in the CrowdHealth community. Use the code TFTC.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
I'm sitting down with Johns and Ed from Peakshift, which is a Bitcoin-focused design agency. Also, founders of Bolt.Fun, which are running the Lightning Legends. How would you guys? It's a tournament. Is it a design tournament, a building tournament? How would you guys describe this?
It's a building tournament. Yeah, we kind of like try to move away from like the hackathon narrative of things, because that tends to be like very technical. So we're calling it a tournament instead, and it's quite epic.
I like it. There's 3 Bitcoin on the line.
3 Bitcoin. Can you believe that?
Bitcoins. As a designers, what do you guys prefer, Bitcoin or Bitcoins? 'Cause language is important for design. People don't recognize this.
Probably more likely that they're going to be multiple UTXOs on the line. Maybe that's the easiest way to say it. I don't know.
A lot of sats.
A lot of sats. We're hoping it's going to be around $60,000, but it kind of depends on the price of Bitcoin on December 7th. So we put a little squiggle next to the dollar amount because we're like, we can't probably promise that it's going to be 60K. So we'll just about 60K. Yeah.
Why so bearish? It could be 120K by then. We don't know.
True that. Let's go, baby.
So what was the intention behind starting Bolt.Fun and this Lightning Legends tournament?
You want to start with the Bolt.Fun stuff then?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the BoltFun, the origin stories started with John's and a couple of others when they were looking for If I'm right in saying it was a lot of resources that were sort of being put into the Bitcoin design guide. I'm not sure if you've heard of the Bitcoin design community, but they're an awesome sort of Bitcoin focused community. They came up with this guide, which is a great way for designers who are kind of looking to interact with Bitcoin software, wallets, how to design wallets and applications and things like that. And it was obviously very on-chain focused when we were kind of contributing to it. And there was a lot of Lightning material that wasn't being written, but wasn't really being used. And that initially sort of started by putting that into a guide. The Bitcoin design guide is now very Lightning focused. I think maybe more so as default. But yeah, we just had a bunch of extra docs and resources that we kind of wanted to put somewhere. We knew that some people wanted to kind of experiment with Lightning and build in the space. So it all really started with the guide. And then from there, we kind of thought, well, hey, there isn't also really like a consolidated community for Bitcoiners online. I mean, you've got Stacker News, you've got PlebWiki, there's obviously GitHub, Twitter is huge as well for people. But there wasn't really like a place where I can go as someone who's looking to build on Bitcoin and Lightning and say, cool, how do I implement LN/URL auth? Or how do I open a Lightning channel? Or how do I get liquidity to my web application? How do I build using WebLN? So that's really what BoltFun aimed to be. That's kind of why we started it, because we wanted to see a lot more innovation and drive from builders in the space to kind of build on the application layer of Bitcoin. So that's what we kind of aim to be. And also, importantly, try and be sort of fun and inclusive, because I think with the maxi attitude sometimes comes this sort of certain level of toxicity, which is fine, but it's sometimes quite disheartening for new people coming into the space who don't really know where to get started. And they're sometimes met with a bit of an attitude of figure it out yourself, or dive deep into this super technical resource, which some people can't even read. So we wanted there to be a slightly more like open arms, friendly space for people to get involved.
Well, that connotation really comes through with the design of the Bolt.Fun site. It's fun. It's a fun site. Like I was telling you guys, I just signed in using WebLN, using Albi. I know that's controversial, but like we said, they're the only ones who've enabled it right now, and it is very easy. 2 clicks and you're in.
Yeah, well, actually, the login mechanism is using LN/URL auth, so you can also scan with Blue Wallet, Breeze, Blixt as well, right? So that's like the authentication part. The voting, that's the WebLN part, right? We could probably do some WebLN-based voting as well. WebLN-based login, because there's a sign message and verify message in there, so it can be used technically for login. But that QR that you clicked on or clicked to connect, that was LN/URL auth, which Albi also incorporates. And I also want to hop on something that Ed said. So you see, new people coming into the space that want to learn about like how to develop applications and stuff on Bitcoin, they got to read like Mastering Lightning or Mastering Bitcoin or something like this, right? And because that's like some of the big documentation that we have for people to understand the tech. But I think it's pretty dense. It's a pretty dense read, you know. It's I read a couple chapters of it. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read the whole thing. But you know, sometimes you have those folks who want to like dive deep into like, okay, how does this entire system function? And then they say, yes, then I'm gonna like design something or build something, code something. But then you have this other type of people like me, actually, which like I like to build stuff to learn, right? And for those people, I think it's very important to have examples, tutorials, just like, hey, this is what it is to make a music app with Lightning or Bitcoin, or this is like some other app, right? So you just follow one tutorial on a weekend. This is how someone's done it. You followed all the steps. You could deviate if you want. but we need more of this. But here's the problem now, right? Within Bitcoin, we use a lot of like chat groups, right? So whether it's Slack, Discord, Matrix, Telegram, none of that is searchable on the web. DuckDuckGo, Google, whatever. You're searching for those tutorials or those lessons or whatever. They're not there, right?
No, you can't find
You can't find them. You have to go, so then you have to find those groups, right?
Yeah.
Now you have to know about the technology specifically, right? You have to know there's something called LNURL Mafia that I'm going to go in there, or Nostr or WebLN, and I'm going to go into those groups. But you don't know those things yet, right?
No,
so then you... Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to say another thing too, like when you're going back to like mastering Bitcoin and mastering Lightning, those are a bit static where a lot of stuff is evolving. Like things like LNURL auth and WebLN probably aren't even in mastering Lightning.
Exactly.
So you guys have like a live, ongoing, evolving place where people can go to learn more about this stuff, which I love.
Yeah, and like when we were building it up, I'm like as an agency, as a like web agency, there's two things that you don't build. One is a project management app. The other one is a social network. Because every agency goes through the same thing. Hey, we could make a better project management app than what we're using now. 37 Signals, they did it as well. Right? They did it quite well. And it's like a bajillion-dollar company now. But most people just end up failing. Right? And in essence, we still ended up doing that with Bolt.Fun because it has this project management style tools, and it's also a social network a bit. But I think one of the reasons why we have to do that as well is because we're also learning what does it take to build a application on top of Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah. For what it's worth, it seems a bit more intuitive than Basecamp. So,
Vibes. Appreciate it.
Well, I mean, design has always been one of the most fascinating areas of Bitcoin to me, because when I left finance, I actually wound up taking a design boot camp, just learning. I wanted to learn about UX, UI design and the psychology behind it. And that was 10 years ago now at this point, or 8 years ago. And as I've gone through my Bitcoin journey, it's always been lingering in the back of my mind. It's obvious that the UX for a lot of the products around Bitcoin, it's definitely getting better today, but historically it has been subpar. And I just always been a champion of, hey, we need to get the designers here to focus on these problems because they're massive problems. And as designers, obviously Bitcoin probably wasn't the first thing you guys worked on as designers. What are the challenges with designing around Bitcoin specifically, particularly having to design for on-chain and then Lightning and then letting users know what's actually happening when they're using different apps throughout the Bitcoin ecosystem?
I think if I can answer first, one thing which I've definitely thought about a lot is the level of abstraction that comes into applications. For example, take for example on-chain transactions where with every on-chain transaction, there needs to be some sort of coin selection where the application, it could be an automatic algorithm or it could be a manual one by the user, where they have to select a certain number of UTXOs or UTXO that they want to use in that transaction, right? They have to like create these sort of transaction inputs and then those form the outputs. And that's it's not too complicated, but it's quite complex, and it's sometimes too complex to maybe have that necessarily in the foreground for applications. So a lot of wallets maybe result to having some sort of automatic coin selection instead. And I think slowly over time, some of those UX bumps have kind of been kinked out a little bit, and people have moved towards sort of certain best practices, which is also one thing which the sort of Bitcoin Design Guide tries to do, is sort of implement best UX principles and practices. But even with like the Lightning stuff now, node management, opening channels, making sure you have inbound and outbound liquidity and stuff like it can be kind of difficult. And I think that where good design is going to come in is where we can kind of keep a lot of the integrity of privacy preserving practices and what it might be, whilst kind of abstracting it on a design layer so that the final user doesn't actually have to kind of push through this like heavy and quite burdensome UX just to do a simple action of sending a Lightning transaction. And I mean, I've definitely come across people in the space who are actually like really adverse to good design. Like they want to kind of simplify everything back to this kind of like Web 1, where it's just this really tacky interface. Or even just you're interacting with just pure code. Like there's not even really like an interface for you to interact with. And it's like, oh, well, maybe we can make this look a bit prettier. And it's like, no, I don't want people who like pretty things to be interacting with my application. I want it to be like hardcore cypherpunks only. And you're like, oh, well, is that going to get everyone involved? Like, probably not. So I think one thing which is just generally like, I think a bit of a pushback is this, people in Bitcoin are sometimes adverse to good design. I think we need to get better at wanting it. And being like, hey, we can compete with some other platforms that have billions in design, and why they're attracting a lot of talent and a lot of interest is because they do focus on design. And then, the second thing I would say is just as a designer who's maybe not super technical, having to kind of digest and abstract a lot of information on what's actually happening in an application, and then trying to put that forward to the user in the simple click of a button or a few buttons,
Yeah.
Sometimes the best kind of like design, there's a project, LNDG, it's in the Bitcoin Design-a-thon, which is, and also in the Legends of Lightning tournament. They've got all this stuff to manage your node's liquidity and different configurations and all that. And we were on a call talking to them, and we're like, what does the best design of this look like? And it's like a single button, right? It's a single button that you press. But how do you get to that point where it's a single button, right? You have to understand all the different configurations and stuff. So we came up with like 3 other buttons, right? Optimize for cost, optimize for this, optimize for that. So it's like, okay, so now it's like 4 buttons. But and then you have to explain to the person what each button does and what those presets mean and all this, right? So we're very much at the point where designers also are having to learn about the different primitives that make up Bitcoin. And to what Ed was saying, sometimes it gets like abstracted like way too far, right? Where it's like, this is just automatic coin selection, let's go. But then what ends up happening is that you don't compensate for that, or the designer may not understand that there is some compromise that happens with regards to privacy, right? That you're now eroding from your user, and have you informed them of this, right? And then we go to the other extreme, which is the manual selection. But to understand how we get to the best solution, which is honest to Bitcoin, right? Because this is a new type of money that we have to design for, right? So we have to, it cannot look exactly like what preceded it. It's not going to look exactly like the Venmo app or the PayPal app, right? We could get it to a familiar level to folks, but there are some underlying things that you have to account for and reflect in the user interface. And I think that's sometimes like the difficult part. Of course, you have like some technical constraints that are also difficult to deal with, like on iOS. How do you run a Lightning node in the background? Well, you can't, not so much. It has like 5 seconds, and then it kills all background processes, right? So that's why you have to have the app open, or like depend on like some external server in order to wake the app up in order when you get the payment. So there are some technical constraints that you can't really design around because they're just so hard. But yeah, I would say like some of them would be the technical constraints, and some of them is like understanding those smaller primitives and constraints of the of the way Bitcoin works.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the coin selection with privacy and letting users know that. So like, how much do you guys think how much can better design improve the user experience? Like, what's the balance between better design and user education? Because like you said, we can get it as close to Venmo as possible, but it's not Venmo. It's Bitcoin. You have UTXOs, you have coin selection, you have all that. Like, how much effort on the education side do you guys think is needed to make people aware of how they should be interacting with these apps?
I mean, these are not new principles in designing for a set of users who don't know about your product or whatever, right? These are things that, like you open like QuickBooks accounting or whatever, there's guided tours, they progressively show you features or ask you to unlock things. So these aren't new things in the UX design, UI design space, right? Typically what we have, I think Moon does a very good job at like the key backup portion of the app, especially. It's very simple, but they take you through these steps and they have this checklist, and I like seeing that kind of stuff. We need it in like other places in the application as well, like when you're doing a spend, etc., etc. Or if you're going to receive, for instance, I'm generating addresses, I'm sharing it with like 10 different people, right? The same address, by the way, right? But now 10 people know this address, but they've not sent the funds. So now, it's so instead maybe that should be something where I'm kind of like labeling my transaction, labeling an address like before it gets generated or something like this, So it is going to need education, as with all interfaces. If I just drop you into what we're using here, Ecamm, without any instructions, you're going to be like, hey, I don't know how to use this. You want to, this company is going to want to reach an audience of like, maybe older folks who aren't really used to live streaming or something. How do they do that? They're going to need to do some education, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the education for onboarding folks, it's just part of user acquisition, like retaining them, right? Mm-hmm. It's not new. Like we've been doing this in product design for years.
Yeah, we need more designers to help educate. You mentioned Moon as a good example of a team that's doing design, UX design, specifically around backups correctly. What other apps are you impressed by their design and their UX?
BoltFun.
I think
BoltFun has very good UX. I just signed up in 5 seconds.
I definitely still room for improvement. I mean, I think one thing you definitely learn when you start developing applications is you start to look at them a little bit like you might other areas of your life, where you're just like, oh, I wish that was a little bit better here, or I wish we had, I don't know, I wish we had kind of like cornered off those radiuses on that card a little bit more, or like I've got a bit of a perfectionist attitude when it comes to the UIs, as John's knows. So I look at BoltFun, I'm like, oh, it's a great UX, but it can definitely be improved. And I think one thing I would say with regards to the UX is, and I'll kind of circle it back around to your last point about the security, is I think there's always this trade-off between there are different elements of UX, right? Like it's kind of all about human emotion as they travel through applications and how they interact with it and how they can complete tasks and how quickly they complete tasks and whatever it might be. And when you start to make different trade-offs, for example, maybe it's slightly easier for me to go through and send this transaction. If you're trying to create like a Venmo style application, maybe you have some sort of contacts extraction and it's done that way, and maybe users have handles, a bit like I think BottlePay have it, where they integrated like BottlePay handles.
Pine and Wallet as well.
Got, like, yeah, there are some really cool ones, right? But like what's happening on the background, and I think as a user, I like those experiences, but at the same time, if I realize that experience has just cost me a bit of privacy, then maybe my user experience begins to change. And I had that with when I first got into Bitcoin and then kind of into crypto and stuff. Maybe we can talk about how Johnson and I met sometime. That was my favorite wallet at the time was Exodus. And that was just because they had like a really big design team or maybe not a big design team, but they had a very like skilled design team. And it was the first wallet that I kind of interacted with. This was kind of also before I had hardware. It was the first wallet that I interacted with where I was like, wow, I feel safe in this application. And I feel like I know exactly what's happening, and I know how to send a transaction. I know how to receive Bitcoin from my friend. And then I realized that they had address reuse. And as soon as I figured that out, I was like, all right, I'm no longer using Exodus. This does not feel like home anymore. This is not an application I want to use. And obviously then kind of bought hardware, and I've had different experiences with them. But all in all, I would say that Trezor is probably one of my favorites. It's well funded. I've tried Casa as well. That was pretty cool, especially for like multi-sig, which can sometimes be a bit cumbersome with the UX. There are some really great ones out there. I think it's just a question of like weighing up what the user knows and how informed they are about the privacy and the security, and then trying to then make that as nice looking as possible and as easy to use as possible.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Good design could make you comfortable, like Exodus, and then you find out one day, holy shit, everybody is sending me Bitcoin, knows how much Bitcoin I have.
Exactly.
And that's dangerous. That's dangerous as well, right?
Yeah.
It could potentially be dangerous because now, like, you can't fix that. It's on the ledger, right? You can't do anything about the past. You can do some forward-facing stuff and preventative things, but by providing such interfaces and not informing people about it, you're kind of like taking away their choice. And I think privacy is the choice to reveal or not reveal. But if you don't communicate that, say like, hey, by using this application or by, sending this address or whatever, this is what happens, But yeah, with regards to applications that I feel are like really nice in the space, I think you mentioned Pine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I saw this one like a couple years ago when I was doing some research on these contact-based abstractions and stuff. And they were one of the first wallets to implement like cloud backups and contacts and stuff. And I'm like, this is awesome, right? This is what it like all Bitcoin applications should look like as a base, just as a base. Right now, of course, there's some decisions like where's the contact list stored. This is before LNURL, Lightning address and stuff like this. But so where this contact stored? Is it local to my device? I'm not exactly sure, but just like on the visual side, I like what that guy's done on that project very much. Yeah.
Yeah, visually, it's pretty stunning. Beautyon's a big fan of Pine Wild. He's the one who made me aware of it. Dove into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, these are exciting. Like, so as designers, let me know, check me if I'm wrong, because I've been putting this out there for many months now. Like, if you're a designer and you want to make your mark on the world, coming to the Bitcoin Lightning application space is probably the best place to come, because it's such a wide open canvas and there's so much to be done that if you want to, again, make your mark on the world as a designer, this is a perfect place to begin working. Is in your mind, is that a correct assertion?
100%. Even if you're a developer, application developer, this is where it's happening. To that point, I think a lot of people think that, developing on Bitcoin or designing on Bitcoin is a difficult endeavor. And one of the reasons why it's called Bolt.Fun and why it has this cartoony look is to be a bit more welcoming and friendly, to make something. The bolt there isn't because of the bolt in the name isn't because of the lightning bolt, right? Right, it's not that. It's actually like basis of lightning technology. That's the acronym that we actually use for it, right? Of course, we play with the name, the word a little bit. So I think we're the only Bitcoin project that does not use the lightning in their like emojis and the buttons to vote and stuff like that. We use like nuts and bolts for builders. But yeah, like there's this perception that Bitcoin is slow, inflexible. You cannot build anything interesting on top of it. And now we have the Lightning Network. That narrative's like changing a bit because the rate of innovation is happening a lot faster there. And we're seeing some very cool developments being made on it and around it, right? That has taken quite a long time for those similar things to be done on chain. So yeah, I think this kind of like a friendly environment and showing that it's a ecosystem that's inclusive, that could help you get onboarded and stuff like that is super critical. And to do so, we're gonna need to kind of like massage the language a little bit, you know. Mm-hmm. It's secure, not slow, for instance. You know.
Yeah, language is important.
You know, exactly. So hopefully we get to change some of that narrative a bit.
And so, how has the growth of BoltFun been since you guys launched it? It seems pretty active. I mean, I was just perusing through the site all morning. It seems like there's a lot going on. I saw PeerTube integration that you guys are pumping. And obviously, you guys have Legends of Lightning going on until December 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, big up Fulga Ventures as well, because they provided the majority of the prize money, 2.5 Bitcoin for prizes, and then we partnered up with the Afro Bitcoin conference, and I think that allowed this thing to get to the level where it is now, because before that we were still in like building phase, and Ed could probably talk about the numbers and stuff from before. You wanna take it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been involved in quite a few projects as an attempted entrepreneur and things like that, and I think BoltFun's probably the first project where it's gaining like the traction and the feedback that I think is being matches the effort that's being put into it, and I'm glad it's heading that way. I think there's still loads of growth to go. With regards to the activity and stuff, it's really great to see that, especially I think it kind of comes around the time of these events. There's money being floated around, there's prizes. People have an incentive to be on the platform and to build in public and stuff. And that's actually kind of one of the reasons why we started these longer format tournaments as well, was because we were running these hackathons, sort of more traditional style hackathons earlier in the year called Shock the Web. And they were really focused at Lightning on web. So using technologies like WebLN, there was a bit of LNURL as well. But it was kind of a much more narrow scope of field. And those ran for like 4 days to a week. So they were still slightly longer than your average hackathon format, but really condensed and really intense. And there were also some prizes. And we just saw these like huge spikes of kind of builder activity. People were joining our Discord, and people were kind of building applications and submitting projects and talking to people. And it was kind of getting bustling and going. But then right after these events, we just had these huge drop-offs where people's projects and themselves were probably burning out. They weren't really committing new designs, new code. And when you want the Bitcoin and the Lightning application layer and space to be kind of bustling and new people coming in, because I think activity attracts new activity. And I think that it's this kind of snowball that needs to keep getting pushed. And once you get it to a stage where people are kind of pushing it themselves, that's really what you want to get to as a platform and as a community. And I hope that this tournament will kind of do that. Like we've been prompting people a little bit to carry on posting on the platform, but people have also been doing it themselves, and people have been taking the initiative into their own hands. So it's great to see the growth is coming. There's still loads more to be done. But yeah, it's really been exciting to be involved in it so far.
Yeah, let's talk about the tournament more. So what exactly are people building towards? How are people going to win Bitcoin by contributing to this tournament or participating in it?
Yeah, so the tournament runs for, I think it's 9 weeks. So it started on October
11th,
12th.
12th.
12th, yeah, so a week ago today. And it runs up until December 7th. If you haven't registered, you can still register. It's not too late to take part. The project entries open, and they'll basically stay open until November the 24th. And then we've got a pretty cool roster of judges who are going to come, and they're going to evaluate a bunch of the projects. We've got 2 tracks as well, which is worth mentioning. So when you enter your project into the tournament, you can either enter the global adoption track or the building for Africa track. The global adoption one is sponsored by Folga, and then the building for Africa is sponsored by the Africa Bitcoin Conference. They were going to host a hackathon as well, kind of at the exact same time as us, and we just thought, let's just merge efforts and just sort of pool the prize money. So the 2 tracks are going to get evaluated between the 24th and the 28th of November. And then we're going to announce a shortlist of finalists, so probably between 8 to 10 for each track. And then on December 6th, after a week of kind of refining their project, adding to it, getting their pitches together, they're then going to be able to pitch them live. And then we'll announce the winners the next day. So both tracks will have $10,000 in prizes. And then additionally, on top of that, from those finalists, we're going to pick around about 10,000. Did I say that wrong, John?
Got denominating stats.
No, I'm always just like 10th, like these numbers, like what? It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Our first 2 events, it was like $2,600 in prizes. We funded the first one ourselves. We got Max from HiveMind and Oleg from Fulgur chipping in on the second one. And then like now it's like 60K with 2 tracks of 10K. It's like what?
And like we were saying, hey, the price could pump between now and then. It's gonna be $120,000 worth of prizes.
Dude, this is wild.
Hey,
why stop?
Why stop there, man?
This is wild. But go on and sorry for
No. I saw you hitting your head. I was like, man, did I say something wrong? No, but there's going to be an extra. So basically, from those finalists, there's also going to be the legend who's going to bag 1 whole Bitcoin, and then there are going to be 2 runners-ups as well who are going to take home half a Bitcoin each. So some pretty huge prizes. We've got loads of different criteria for people to take a look at. That's going to be sort of product market fit, execution of the idea, design, build in public. So that's going to be a big one. Essentially, we're trying to kind of drive people to build their products and applications out in the open. Again, because there is a lack of consolidated resources in the space, it's hard to kind of learn as well how to do these things. So when people start building in public, not only does it kind of follow that Bitcoin ethos, the open source ethos, but it also allows a lot of other people in the space to be like, oh, cool, that's how they implemented their LNURL auth, or which is an issue we're having at the moment, is a few hackers are like, oh, I don't know how to implement LNURL auth. It's like, okay, well, has someone else done it? Yeah, they have. Cool. Well, let's just point you at their article that they wrote on how to implement it.
And where are you guys seeing? Is it people from all over the world coming to focus on this? You guys have like a number of countries or anything?
Everywhere, baby, everywhere. We got folks from India coming in. There's quite a number from Africa, US. I'm not sure if there's any South American teams or Central American teams. All over Europe. It was wild. So I was in Bulgaria over the weekend for a Bitcoin conference there put on by Plamen, really cool guy. And someone reached out to me and said like, hey, could we meet for a coffee or whatever? I'm like, yeah, sure, no worries. And apparently he was from the Bolt.Fun community, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm taking part in the hackathon." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I didn't. But like for me, like my mind keeps getting blown when like this happens, because I'm like, we're doing this digital thing, right? We're pushing pixels, we're writing code, we're doing live streams or whatever, but it's all pixels, right? And then you like see someone IRL, you're like, "Wait, what?" Like,
that's the
this person is real, like.
Yeah, it's the great thing about conference. Like we met in Riga. It was funny to hear your story, how you ended up in Serbia. I'm like, yeah, it's just great getting to meet people in person. That, like for me, Riga is always an incredibly humbling experience because I get to meet people who listen to the podcast from all over that part of the world, and it's always crazy to me. Like, oh, you're from Serbia, you're from Finland, you're from Bulgaria, you're listening to the show. It is really special what's going on here. There's people all over the world saying, hey, this thing's important, we need to make it happen. It's just regular dudes like us three.
Yeah, somebody described this, I can't remember who, so and I can't cite them, but there you go. Someone said like Bitcoin's like a social network, and I was thinking about that, and I'm like, holy hell, it is, right? Because like we're all part of this kind of like Bitcoin community, right? And it doesn't matter where it is. It's like, it is technology based in terms of like the protocol itself, but our communication mechanisms are not on the protocol only. It's like in real life, at conferences, at events, at meetups, at co-working spaces and all that. And it's very interesting to see like all of us with this aligned interest in Bitcoin adoption, etc. Just like interacting in various locations. I've been at like a bunch of conferences this year, and I'm meeting some of the same people in like different countries as well, And I'm like, oh yeah, Boomy, I'm gonna see you in like 2 months now. It's fine. We didn't meet up in Amsterdam. It's like it's very interesting.
It's fun. It's exciting. It's
fun.
Definitely feels like there's a purpose here. And meeting people in real life really reinforces that.
Yeah.
There aren't.
Riga, Go on.
No, I was just going to say there aren't too many other, even sort of areas of technology or finance where, I don't know, maybe you would, but if you ever heard someone at like a Thanksgiving dinner, some long lost relative who's talking about credit default swaps, you probably wouldn't go up to them and be like, bro, I'm also into credit default swaps. Like, let's go chat on the couch. Like, no, but if they're into Bitcoin, you're like, cool, this guy's also down the rabbit hole. Like, I fuck with that. So it's kind of like a really unique community in that sense.
Yeah, it is. And so, I mean, Ed, you mentioned it. We should hear the story of how you two met. What's the origin story of the BoltFun team meeting?
I just kind of hung my boots up from another project I was working on, which was also it was actually sort of in the Ethereum space. I had done that for a couple of, I had done that for a couple, well, wait till you hear it. I was, kind of came in through Bitcoin, went into Ethereum, was working in that space for a while, and then kind of left this job. And there was a hackathon that was organized. It was kind of around, it was like, this was probably nearly 3 years ago. And it was kind of when like ETH2 nodes were about to get deployed or not get deployed. And anyway, I signed up to this hackathon, and Johnson and I were put on the same team. And we ended up, I think we can say we won the hackathon. We were like the only project that actually finished a working prototype. So I think by default we won. And then after that, we were like, yeah, let's just work together. John's was kind of like, yeah, I just want to work on Bitcoin. And I was also pretty interested to do that. I kind of got a little bit disillusioned by the Ethereum stuff. So we kind of changed tack, became a Bitcoin only design agency, Peakshift. And then 2.5 years later, we actually met for the first time in real life, which was cool. Like, you're talking about being in the pixel space. had this like really close relationship with someone behind a screen for ages, and then we finally met up in Bulgaria, and then we headed out to Istanbul for the Fulmo Hack Day, which was really fun earlier this year.
What was it like meeting in person for the first time? Was it big hugs?
I think John's was slightly shorter than I expected, but
oh man, come on! So I'm apparently like the shortest person in the
You're
company
not that short.
now.
Yeah, I think you're taller than me.
I thought I wasn't that short, and then like everyone in the company that I meet, I'm like, holy hell, why is everyone taller than me? Like I'm getting like Napoleon complex now. Yeah, no, but you know, yeah, like just being able to like meet and stuff, it's like, yeah, that was really special. And we've been working together for, yeah, like you said, like almost, is it going up to 4 years now, I think? And no, 3 years, yeah, going up to 3 years, yeah. And I don't know, it becomes kind of normal now, doesn't it? You know, it becomes kind of normal where you like, you know how to interact with this person, you know the jokes that this person likes, you know these kind of things. So it's like, yeah, it's we're in the metaverse, right? And we just took it to IRL.
The meat space meetups are always better, in my opinion.
Exactly. But hopefully, hopefully we get to meet up more as a community. What I've really like is that there's a bunch of different events, like satellite events, that are popping up all over the world now. Like Pleb Weekend a couple weeks ago. They had like a Legends of Lightning-esque thing there. There's I think one in Tel Aviv, Israel, popping off as well. Bit Miami, I think they're called. There's some events that are happening there, mentorship sessions, etc. It's just really cool to see like people kind of like running with this. I like to say this, we're not trying to be like a centralizing event or whatever that takes everything and like we want to do everything ourselves. We just want to coordinate the community to innovate and get together and help one another out to build cool shit. And I think in our first event, Roy put this really well. He's like, the thing that the Lightning Network needs is traffic. How do you get traffic, right? It's through uses and use cases and stuff like that getting built on it, right? So I'm very interested in very local solutions being made, even if it's for like your own, like, you know, your own problem that you're trying to solve, or whether it's a problem for your local community, like the community banking stuff, whatever. I'm very interested in like people applying Bitcoin to like local problems or use cases where it kind of matters or where it solves the problem for them. And I want to see that happen like globally, right? And that, I think, is a good strategy for onboarding people, getting people kind of like understanding, because it can't be top down where like it's only English speaking people are producing content for like the whole world and telling them how to use Bitcoin or whatever, or this is how the UI should be, and you shouldn't have XYZ features because you know, that's not what the rest of the no, maybe there's a certain feature that's very relevant to that local community, right? There's a talk going on stable sats right now from Nicholas and Galoy, and we were talking about like, do you need to have this like USD balance in a wallet for these local community banks? And the thing is, if you're not able to just be a hodler and you can't go to zero on fiat, right? Because you have to pay for diapers, you have to, you know, pay your rent and stuff like that, you know, or you can't just be exposed to that volatility, right? Then yes, you do need that US balance in your wallet, you know? So yeah.
No, I think that use case specifically is something that opened up my mind to break me free from like my Western view of how I approach Bitcoin. Because I used to have Matt Alborg on the show. He's at BitRefill now, but a couple years ago he came on a few times to talk about stablecoin adoption in Nigeria and Venezuela and Argentina. And that really was like an aha moment for me. Like, oh, people are using Bitcoin as a rail, but they do need that stability at the end of the day. And like you said, like with the community banks, what Fediment and Fedi are trying to do there, the way Obi describes the specific problems and how trust is different in different parts of the world. There's going to be many different experiences touching all the stacks or all the layers of the stack in Bitcoin. And it's beautiful to see that you guys have created Bolt.Fun to get people from all over the world to focus on this. And with Legends of Lightning, I really like the two tracks. You have global adoption and then something that's Africa specific. So what are you guys able to disclose what people are building on both tracks to sort of go after these two specific problems?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are some, with regards to specific projects, some people haven't specialized or at least kind of said what their track is going to be yet, but I guess we can kind of assume. There are some really cool ones. There's one, Dan Gold's project, No Looking, that looks really interesting. It's on sort of opening Lightning channels using a page line. There is one called LightSats, which is about kind of tipping people or sort of basically how to kind of onboard strangers without having to necessarily get them to like download a wallet first and that type of stuff. There are a lot of projects in the Bitcoin Designathon, which is kind of happening right now. One which I'm particularly excited about is they're developing a game called Saving Satoshi, which is kind of like an interactive code engine type thing where they can kind of take you through a lot of the chapters in Bitcoin's history and like solving certain bugs and seeing like kind of what went wrong, which is great. So for people who are kind of developers or maybe have some experience developing, then they can kind of like take through that journey. There is, I think I just saw Tower Wallet, which is one of Danny Deasy's projects. I think they're going to enter that. I think Galoy are trying to maybe issue a bounty with Collider to try and get some people using stable sats on there. Hopefully we'll see a whole bunch of Taro projects. I hope I'm not missing too many like really obvious ones.
Well, of course, there's like a whole bunch. I think there's last time I checked, which was I think yesterday or so, there was like more than 20. A couple that kind of like could show some distinctions between global adoption and like local projects would be, for example, there's like Gift Cash. So yeah, I just pulled it up here. It's an easy way for companies and individuals to create and send Bitcoin gift cards, and they're going to do some stuff with like LNURL withdrawal, right? So you'd be able to just like create these gift cards, send them out or print them out or whatever, and you know you scan it with your wallet and
people can sweep them
to get the gift cards. Yeah, exactly. Then there's also one called Agreement. That's the guy I met in Bulgaria. They're doing. It seems like a lot, but they're doing this USD-based mobile interface, USSD, right? You know, this kind of like text message kind of protocol, right? So they're using this for interacting with Bitcoin and this agreement system. The agreement system itself is using federated Chaumian Mint, so maybe something like Cashew or Fedi or something like that. And they're going to have some kind of like lending component to it. And the idea is that they're giving like cashew farmers in Tanzania access to capital and loans and stuff like that for their farming stuff.
That seems really cool.
Yeah. Exactly, right? And the USSD part is this is the component that's, you know, very local, right? It's especially in East Africa, most of the payments or at least digital payments are being done through mobile money, whether it's MTN or I forget the other one. But yeah, MTN and M-Pesa, yes, exactly. All right. So that's like a very local one, right? So you could, if you integrate with like a local community to get your stuff deployed, example, this one I love as well, Bitcoin Mountain. So Bitcoin Mountain is a new community banking initiative that's happening in Cameroon, I want to say. And what I love about that is that it doesn't have to be a fully technical thing to get started up on the hackathon. On the Legends of Lightning tournament, right? You could just be like, okay, I have an idea. I want to start this initiative to onboard my local community onto Bitcoin and create this circular economy. Maybe eventually we get to the bank part of it, but hey, let me print out some flyers for merchant. Let me print out some QR codes of Lightning addresses. Let me do some workshops and stuff to educate people on how this could be useful, etc., and the different use cases. And that doesn't necessarily have to touch anything besides a design tool, right? Yeah. But it's still going to count for local adoption, which is what we need, global adoption or local adoption, whichever. But that's what we need. We need people from all parts of the stack, all parts of all skill levels and all roles. We need them to come into Bitcoin because there's a deficit of them. Company, like people are like the top talent are just moving between companies constantly, right? But like they need new talent to come in also, right? And a lot of companies before this bear market were having a lot of issues hiring people, finding people, right? So we need people in marketing, growth, sales, development, of course, design, etc., because it takes a diverse group of people to create great products, right?
Yeah. So, and different products for different localities.
Exactly.
No, it was really cool to see BitKnob's M-Pesa integration get launched a few weeks ago. I think that's going to be massive.
Exactly.
For what they're doing. And it feels like it's happening, especially like the cliche trope of building in the bear market, but it really does seem, on Lightning specifically, everything that I'm seeing coming out right now is mind-blowing. It's hard to keep up with everything that's being built.
Wait, there's a bear market happening?
Did you see that video with like the bear clawing at this guy up the mountain and shit? That was wild.
It's crazy.
That was wild. But what kind of projects are you interested to see with this kind of like explosion on the application layer and stuff in Bitcoin? Or what kind of stuff are you hoping to see?
I really like that mountain Bitcoin idea. Again, it's just education. It's getting people aware of it. Like, hey, this is something that you should be paying attention to, probably playing around with in the least bit, hopefully adopting at some point in the near to medium term. I'm actually really excited, and I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts on this. Has actually been lingering in the back of my mind to bring up is adding an NFC component to the design landscape. Like you see Coin Corner with their card, CoinKite with their Sats card and their tap signer, adding this ability to either sweep funds via NFC, pay with NFC, or sign a key with NFC. That's an area of the design space that I'm really excited about. Have you guys explored that at all?
Yeah, I'm also really excited about that. I actually haven't really tried it out myself. I think they've kind of been, I saw quite a few Coin Corner cards floating around Bitcoin Amsterdam and stuff like that. But there was actually a guy who, and I guess shout out, I think it's this Saturday evening in Lone Tree, Colorado. He organized this Crypto Beer Kings event, like a satellite event for Legends of Lightning. And they're actually using, I think, NFC tech in like inside of kind of event wristbands. So people who maybe have no experience using Lightning or whatever it is, maybe they just like beer and they want to go for a couple of drinks. They'll get like an event ticket, which is kind of a little bit like a festival wristband you'd usually get, and they can just basically go around and sweep and pay for things and stuff using their wristband, which is like, that's crazy. Like that's actually really cool to think about that.
Yeah, and I think Coin Corner just teased like a ring that they have too that's NFC enabled. You can.
Oh man!
Who needs an Apple Watch when you got NFC, right?
I go one finger missing, one ring missing there.
Yeah, but
I'll definitely get that.
That stuff excites me. I've really been excited about Fedimint, Xiaomi Mint, and how they're going to be adopted. Obviously, there's a lot of controversy over the custody trade-off, but I think it's worthwhile, particularly in certain parts of the world where trust models are different than they are here in the West. And so I'm really excited to see that get launched in the next few months here and see people experimenting with that, because I think just within those mints by themselves, the design landscape in there, you can be a bit more creative, and I'm really excited to see how creative people get with designing on within these mints.
Yeah, I think earlier this week, Leo from Lightning Labs did a talk on Taro as well. I think that's gonna. I find it quite interesting, and I'm also interested to see how the narratives around these things kind of form as well, because it's like so we have this series called Tokens on Bitcoin. Some people say it's assets or whatever, but in reality, we know what it is. I'm very interested to see what comes out of that, but also, what that does to the kind of like the ecosystem. We were talking about it as well, that, we have to. All right, so let me back up a little bit. So there's tokens that are going to be on Bitcoin. That's going to open up a new like design space, but there's also space that, these folks in the Web3 land, in the crypto, Ethereum, Solana land, they might start developing an interest now, right? Because if your blockchain, quote unquote, blockchain is shutting down every
goes down for 4 hours a week.
It's freaking insane, right? Now, so they have like this kind of like speculative or whatever incentive to come over to build Bitcoin now. What is that going to do? And are we able as a community to instill some of the principles and philosophies that we've developed and maintained over these years? Are we able to kind of like instill them in those projects now? Because in inviting new people in, right, we also have to kind of like, we can't really control what gets built, what people do with it, right? That's the whole idea about Bitcoin. And for me, I just want to see everything come to Bitcoin. That's my philosophy, right? But like, how do we kind of like instill those principles so we don't see like a ton of like absolute crap come in, right? Like that series could have been called "Shitcoins Are Coming to Bitcoin" as well, right? It's a reality.
They're being very particular with the language.
But it's true. So it's going to be interesting over the next year and so what starts to happen, and that's like on Bitcoin, on Lightning, and with things like Taro as well.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I've never been more bullish. Another thing, while it's on top of my mind, I mean, Ed, you mentioned it earlier, like communicating, particularly around Lightning Network liquidity. That's another area of design that I think needs a lot of work. Like, how do you get users to conceptualize the idea of two-sided channels and balancing those channels and being aware of it on the go and understanding what's happening when they can't send a transaction due to a channel imbalance or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was having a conversation with Alan from Lightning Network Plus last night as well, and we were kind of saying, if there could be a tool which you would build for the Legends of Lightning, or if you could see it being built, like what would you do? And he was talking about having an application that lets him know when his channel is basically being depleted, or all sorts of things. And it's like, wow, this is someone who's super technical and can probably access a lot of this information, and they're actually still asking for this thing to be built. I don't operate my own node, so I feel very hypocritical when I talk about obviously that type of stuff, but I have been really interested in doing it for a really long time. I think I haven't tried it yet, again, myself, but I want to run a node at home, and I think I'd probably maybe go for an option like Umbrel. There is a lot of really cool stuff with like cloud sort of node infrastructure, with voltage, particularly LN bits. I think there are loads of resources that people can kind of pick up and use. If they don't have that like reliable sort of home connection, then maybe that's the better option. But there's still so much to be done. And I think it kind of reminds me of probably what the on-chain space was quite a few years ago, where you had a very small handful of people that were kind of experimenting with this, and now the pool is really growing, especially in Lightning, but it's still quite manual, and it's still quite sort of unabstracted from what it actually kind of, not necessarily should be, but at least, my grandmother is not going to set up a Lightning node. I fucking wish she would, but she's probably not gonna it's just not gonna happen, right? But if I can see her before she kicks the can, if I can ever see her send a Lightning payment, that would be sweet. So
call your grandmother streaks.
Well, a node like Braiins is a full node running on a mobile device, right? So like, how do we define node? Do we define node as a Raspberry Pi, right? When the majority of people are running, are using this, right? This is what most people have.
Yeah, it's another. I mean, that's another thing. Thinking about design and breaking free from like the Western view of the world. Like most of the world is going to be mobile first, probably using an Android device.
Yeah, and even Obi talks about this. You're doing hardware wallets and stuff like that. Not even a node, a hardware wallet. Shipping stuff to some places, they never arrive, right? Then there's a whole bunch of taxes that you have to pay on top of it if you're buying it for yourself or whatever. And sometimes if they we have this problem in St. Lucia, they'll classify something incorrectly because they don't know what it is and give you a higher charge on taxes, and not everyone's able to pay this, so then they don't get the products, right? So and that's one issue, but then the other issue is that you the things just don't show up, right? You order it and it gets lost in the shipment, or never delivered.
Gets lost at Heathrow Airport.
Exactly. So, well, actually, on the docks. Usually it arrives on the docks, then it disappears, So yeah, not everyone is going to be able to have hardware devices or get Raspberry Pis. I heard even the prices of Raspberry Pi devices are skyrocketing as well because
chip shortage and all that.
Chip shortage, but also a bunch of Bitcoiners are buying Raspberry Pis now.
Yeah, it's there's so much to think about. Oh yeah, and going back to low hanging fruit. I mean, we're talking about Lightning, and Ed, you said on-chain's pretty developed, but even on-chain, I'd like to see, as somebody who runs a business, accepting Bitcoin on-chain and Lightning, but for on-chain, running through my BTC Pay server, there's some low-hanging fruit there that could really, it's a combination of the hardware wallets and BTC Pay server. I think Trezor in their suite, they need to automatically increase their gap limit or make it easier for business owners using BTC Pay server like myself to increase the gap limit when I go into Trezor suite, because people will create invoices, not pay them, and then Trezor won't recognize the paid invoices, which are 100 addresses down. The gap limit isn't that big, so I plug it in, and it's oh, the Bitcoin's not there. It is there. I just got to plug it into Sparrow or something like that and increase the gap limit using that. So that's an easy UX fix. I think's low-hanging fruit. Again, BTC Pay server receiving on-chain payments that range anywhere from $5 to $100. I would like little reminders hey, you have X amount of UTXOs that are equal to Y amount of Bitcoin. You should probably consolidate these so that you can spend them in the future. So we don't have dust, the problem that Coinbase had this problem in 2017 where they had something like $20 million worth of UTXOs that they couldn't spend because fees were too high because they didn't consolidate UTXOs smartly.
Yeah. I mean, that whole fees are too high thing is also a bunch of BS, right?
Why do you say that?
No, because it's one is difficult to predict, do an algorithm to do a fee calculation, right? Mm-hmm. To say this is the estimated fee for fee estimation. It's a difficult thing to do because now you have to predict what what the market price is going to be, right? And you're going to have to drive that down optimally. Now, if your code has a bug, or if you just don't like pay attention to these things, and then you're like, if you don't pay attention to it and you have some like wrong configurations, then people are definitely overpaying, right? When the algorithm should be like being optimized downwards. And so I don't know, like also like in the like the fees too large space, on Ethereum the fees were like what, $100, $200 or whatever. I mean, like, Bitcoin fees are cheap. Bro.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, I had I don't know if you guys ever tried out the Argent wallet. It was like on Ethereum a few years ago. They had these things called, they use smart contracts, and you have these things called like guardians, where so instead of taking down a seed phrase, I can get my mum to download a wallet and my dad or whatever, and I can make them guardians. So then they kind of become these like multi-signature guardians of my account, whatever it is, guardians of the galaxy. Anyway, I think I staked maybe like a couple $100 of what is it, some crappy coin, just to try and get some yield when that was kind of happening. And I then tried to cash it out because I remembered, I was like, oh fuck, I had this Argent wallet, it's probably got a few $100 in it, and I think ETH had spiked at the time, so I was like, great, I'm definitely going to get this out. I'll probably pay for my holiday or something. And I think I had like over $500 in this wallet, but the transaction fee was higher for extracting the funds. The transaction fee from getting it out of that smart contract was higher than the actual funds itself. And I was like, well, this is just lost. Like, this is dead money. Like, what am I going to do? We try to contact Argent. They're like, yeah, we're going to deploy version 2. Sorry to any of the Argent guys. I'm sure you're doing a great job. But like, it's like, that's crazy. Like, people are slamming Bitcoin for having these huge fees when I was about to pay like $400 for extracting some shitcoin out of a smart contract. Like, that's not right. And we talk about like high transaction fees. It's like, well, it's not really a high fee. You're probably just, like John said, check the mempool, like do it on a Sunday morning. Even in Europe, you should do it in the morning before the US wakes up. Know when to do it, because I have sent Bitcoin before where I've been sweating because it's been like stuck in some long queue because I try to be smart and put like too low of a transaction fee on it. But yeah, when you come back to UX and you think, why am I paying $10 for a transaction? It's like, well, actually, I don't have to be paying that. Maybe some wallet is trying to make a bit of a run on me, or trying to abstract it a little bit too much, where they think that that's going to be safe enough to push it through in the next 10 minutes and get a confirmation. But you could definitely lowball it as long as it's not too low and get stuck there. But
yeah,
you just got to have patience.
Just be like Catan, just 1 sat per byte every transaction.
Let's go. But okay, so a couple of things Ed mentioned here that I think we as a community need to kind of like again, this was language, right? That we need to kind of like maybe build some campaigns and stuff around. So he's talking about like a multi-sig that you create like some smart contract and stuff with, whatever, right? Here's the thing: multi-sigs are inherent in Bitcoin, right? You do it off-chain. You don't need to pay a transaction fee for a multi-sig to deploy a multi-sig smart contract. And here's the beautiful thing: that smart contract thing as well, it exists on Bitcoin, on-chain. We have smart contracts already. The whole transaction that you look at, right? It has like a whole, like, it doesn't, like, it's not Turing complete, but also we don't need that, right?
Yeah,
we don't need a Turing complete thing because we're seeing all the shit that's happening also. So we need to do a good job and saying like, instead of, we need to look at what we have in Bitcoin. And yes, we do have smart contracts, right? And what's an example of a smart contract? It's a multi-sig. And you know how great it is? You can pay $4, right, in transaction fees and get 1,000 people
right.
to sign, right?
You can break BTCD and LND at the same time.
Okay, well, relax. Come on, relax. Come on. We're trying to evangelize here. Come on, But anyway, you can have 1,000 people on a multi-sig, right? And it costs $4.
Yeah, so that's
it.
490 cents. So that's less than half a penny per person.
Boom, let's go.
Yeah.
Right? that seems pretty fast and cheap to me.
Yeah,
That
it's
seems
pretty
very
incredible.
flexible.
Yeah.
That seems very flexible. And what's even crazier with Taproot and stuff like that, those 998 keys, whatever, could also be like branches of other keys,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
So it's like, what?
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface. And that's, again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your guys' ass, but I'm extremely happy that we have designers of your caliber focusing on these problems, because they need attention, and they need like design thinking brought to them. Like Ed, you mentioned, like a lot of the Bitcoin developers want people to interact with CLI. It's like, that's not going to happen. Like, people aren't going to be hopping in the command line and running CLI commands to send transactions. Some people will, but a very small majority, or minority, excuse me.
Yeah, it's like, thanks for the kudos and stuff like that, but it's not going to be us solving all of these problems. There's too many things, different pieces of Bitcoin that we need to work through on whether it's user experience or to put to use. We need to put these things to use, because we have smart contract, we have multi-sig. I want to see like thousands of wallets, local wallets, solving multi-sig things, Taproot things, all smart contract things, etc. We need people to do that. And I really hope that we could be inviting for people to come in. For me personally, again, it's just whatever you do, it should be on Bitcoin, right? Come in, build, make stuff, help out with the UX, help the adoption, because this is the strongest money, the hardest money, and the best foundation that there is to build on, right?
Yeah.
And it's exciting, and it's fun, it's flexible, it's fast. Payments are lightning fast right now. So, let's get more people to be hyped up about this, hyped up about building in Bitcoin, hyped up to design stuff and want to be part of this space.
Yeah. No, I'm all for it. Let's fucking make it happen. Are you guys seeing anybody from your design circles begin to be like, all right, I'm ready to become focused on this and begin working on these problems? Do you see more interest from the design side of things?
I spoke, I'll just touch on this one. I spoke to, so I have a friend, he's like skeptical about anything Bitcoin related, anything crypto, all this. He's like, oh, shut up, it's going to get regulated away. But I put him in contact with this Agreement project. And I'm like, hey, check this project out. They're doing some really cool stuff in Africa there. He focused on the use case. He's like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I want to help this project out. He's still not a Bitcoiner. But I think that's a good strategy to get people in as well, right?
The particular use case. Hey, we want to help farmers finance their operations.
Yeah.
You can abstract Bitcoin away. Like, okay, I can get down with that.
Exactly. And then he's going to learn about its impact, etc. Then, maybe this Bitcoin thing. Ed, what do you got?
I think there's definitely a lot more interest around it. I think one thing that I would say, or that at least I've found, is that it's a really exciting space to be in, because it's still, like, we're still so early. I think people struggle to wrap their heads around that sometimes. Like, there needs to be more design and more developers in the space, but there's also loads of room for growth. As John said, it's fast, it's flexible. There are new ways that you can use it. There are old ways that you can repurpose things. I think it's just a question of, like, sort of spiking people's curiosity and getting them involved and realizing that they can have a voice kind of in this space. And I think that sometimes it's quite intimidating when you go to slightly larger spaces and you're like, God, this is such a diluted pool of talent. How is my NFT platform going to stand out from everyone else's? And it's like, well, it's somewhat overcrowded. And I think that one of the benefits of Bitcoin is that it attracts really like a high caliber of talent. And I think that it's surprising how once you're in the space, it actually doesn't feel as big as you might think it is. And it's, you two meeting in Serbia, or meeting people at meetups who you've been kind of like, because I think sometimes you sort of evangelize people behind screens and behind pixels, and you're like, oh wow, they've got like 50,000 followers on Twitter, maybe they're like really successful and stuff, and then you meet them in real life and you're like, oh, they're just a normal person, and I can do that too. And that was kind of my initial reaction when I got involved in the Bitcoin design community. I remember going to John's and being like, God, there are so many like really talented designers in here, like do I need a qualification to be in here or something? It's like, no, you don't. It's just get involved, just do your thing. And I think people are really receptive. Like, jump in people's Discords, like jump in the Telegram groups, reach out to them on Twitter. Like, people are super friendly, and I think that they're really welcoming. And everyone I've met in this space kind of extends an olive branch of some sort. And I would just suggest kind of taking advantage of that and coming in whilst it's early. Like, it's fun to be early to a space. You're going to get a slightly bigger voice. You're going to get more influence. You're going to have more projects that you can work on. That really what interests me. Like, I'm probably not going to be able to go into the fintech space and work on an application where I'm like, wow, I feel like I really developed some UX principle for fintech. It's like, no, but I can probably do that in Bitcoin. And for me, that's what I want at this point in my life and in my career. And I feel like that's what Bitcoin is giving me. So eternally grateful.
Yeah. No, it's incredible. Thank you guys for doing what you're doing. Again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I think design is extremely important. And the efforts you guys are doing with Bolt.Fun and Legends of Lightning is definitely going to push the ball forward. And you mentioned Tal Wallet and Danny. I actually recorded with him yesterday, but you guys are going to leapfrog his episode. I'm going to post this on Friday just for the timely nature of the tournament and everything going on.
Yeah, I just want to say, with the Legends and Lightning tournament, the registration stuff is still open. If you have a project that you want to work on, like, jump in there, just register as a maker. There's a list of other people that you could link up with. It's going like several more weeks, so you could jump in at any time. We do ask you to do kind of like be transparent with your building, but that doesn't mean that you have to be it doesn't have to be an open source project. And it doesn't have to be a new project. It could be an existing project that you significantly update. And what building in public means, and like being transparent, is just sharing your wins, your losses, the problems that you have, and your plans. We use this for like figuring out what kind of updates that you made during the time of the event. And there's like a bunch of like mentorship sessions, a bunch of people in the space, they want to help you. There's a big shout out to Fulgur Ventures. Like, without them, this wouldn't have been possible.
Shout out Oleg.
Shout out Oleg, yes, seriously. Shout out to all the judges. There's like 20 something judges, some top people in the freaking industry.
It's stacked.
Yo, I don't know how we pulled this off.
It's really
no idea.
It's quite impressive.
It's crazy. And don't think of it as like a competition so much. It is a tournament, yes. Don't think of it like that. Think about it like an accelerator or an incubator, right? Because we want to help all those projects be successful, right? We want to help you be sustainable. So, for example, if you're not looking for investment funding for a business venture or something, you might want to do open source crowdfunding, right? We linked up with Geyser.fund. We'll link up with OpenSats, and they're going to be doing some presentations to help you create your campaigns and stuff, right? So if you want to get some advice on that, of course, if you want to talk to investors, this is a great platform. We got Max from Hivemind, we got Mike from Lightning Ventures, we got Oleg, the beast, the dog, Oleg in there from Fulgur. We got, who else? Stillmark in there as well. So we got some top players. So if you're a project and you want to be be in front of these people, hop in. And again, it's about helping you be sustainable, helping you build Bitcoin projects that are everlasting, and can help with adoption. Yeah.
And you can do this at Bolt. You sign up via Bolt.Fun, correct?
Bolt.Fun, that's it. Fun is mandatory, fun is in the name.
Yeah, you can either go to Bolt.Fun, which is kind of our parent domain, or you can just go straight to makers.bolt.fun, which is kind of like the makers portal. It's kind of like the web app where people can interact and write stories and join up tournaments and team up and things like that. So yeah, we're actually going to be also releasing a feature probably pretty soon. It's kind of already out. It's a sleeping beast, but we're going to announce it later today. But people can start adding their projects to our directory and stuff, which has probably been one of our biggest use cases, but it's taken a while to get around to it. And shout out to a lot of the developers last week who we had to put out a lot of back-end fires last week. So but that was great. That was also another reason why we need this community, right? Because we had this issue with our API and our backend, and we were like, wow, we don't know how to fix this. So we just posted in our Discord with like 350 devs. And then immediately we got like 5 responses being like, yeah, this is how you can optimize your queries. You should switch your like server locations, like all of these things that we couldn't really think about by ourselves. And we're like, wow, we should lean on our community a bit more. They're really good.
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be great for you guys. Just like, hey, can you help us with our site? Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. John, thanks for reaching out. I'm happy that we were able to get this done so quickly, because I think, again, this is an important initiative, and I'm really excited to see what gets built from the Legends of Lightning tournament. And hopefully there's just one of many to come in the future.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, definitely. We want to do like one every quarter, lasting for 2 months each. So that's the goal. We'll see if we could make that feasible. We've been self-funded. Oh, shit. I guess I haven't like properly announced it, but we got a grant from OKCoin. So big up to them as well. I have to give thanks, because since, believe it or not, we've been self-funding this for the entire time. And it's a team of people. Yeah. In a bear market as well. So
shout out to OKCoin.
Yeah, but the lights are gonna be still on. Let's go. But yeah, we're hoping to be able to get this once every quarter, and a big shout out to the community, the different communities, where it's Bit Miami, the plebs in Austin, a whole bunch of them. Total Goes in El Salvador, all the different Galoy, all the companies that are helping us, because we don't have like those media contacts and stuff like that. We're product people, right? So the kind of love that we've been getting from people like you, the rest of the community, it's like, it goes like such a long way. We don't have marketing budgets or anything like that. So it goes such a long way, and we believe in this as a net good for Bitcoin, to help onboard people, to help people with their projects. And all those people have been helping us out. You've been helping us out by giving us this platform. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
No need to thank me. I love what you guys are doing. So it's a natural fit to talk about this. So freaks, go to Bolt.Fun. If you're building something, join the Legends of Lightning tournament. And again, this is the first of many. So be on the lookout if you've got an idea in the back of your head that you're not ready to launch next quarter, maybe. What should we leave the freaks with? What should we end this on?
I think that was a good way to end it.
All right. Gentlemen, go forth and keep crushing.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for having us.
Peace and love, freaks. Dickie!